on a fairly dreary Thursday afternoon, we're going to liven up your day with a exciting mhance webinar. And today we're exploring the digital shift and ask ourselves, are your nonprofit systems ready? So we'll look at new donor behaviors, new digital expectations, and new fundraising realities, which are reshaping what effective engagement looks like. So our focus today is not just about future gazing, but really about being realistic with actionable steps. So my name is Johannes. I work in business development here at mhance. We're joined by my colleague Tori Cassie, Director of Nonprofits, who's going to keep an eye on the chat. So if there's any questions, please pop them in the chat. Obviously, I won't be able to see anyone, unfortunately, but we'll have some time for questions and answers afterwards if you want to, if you have any burning questions, of course. So this is our agenda for the next 30 minutes. So we'll start with some of the major headwinds facing nonprofits as a whole. Then we move into major digital trends across UK nonprofits. And from there, we zoom into a couple of key trends we're seeing when we speak to prospects and customers, which are around online giving and the rise of AI-powered tools. And finally, we'll wrap with some practical steps. So perfect. So let's get going. So we're obviously delighted that so many of you are joining here. Obviously, I can see there's lots of existing clients and prospects who've joined us today. So I'm Johannes. I work in business development here at mhance. I'm originally from Germany, but I live in West Oxfordshire, and unfortunately never quite managed to get rid of the accent entirely. But on that picture that you can see is me with the boss. I guess we all need a particular reason to do what we do, and which brings me on to my particular experience in terms of what I'm passionate about. So I've been very fortunate that I've had the opportunity to work with nonprofits for the last 20 years and 11 years since 2015 in the nonprofit technology space across Blackboard, Salesforce, and Microsoft. And obviously these days I work for mhance in business development, and obviously mhance, for those of you that don't know, we're a non-profit-focused technology provider focusing on Microsoft technologies, especially around CRM, data, ERP, AI, and so forth. So delighted that so many of you can join us here. Right, without further ado, to kick things off, let's look at some of the the wider challenges nonprofits are facing in 2026. So times for nonprofits are, as it says here, obviously are very, very tough at the moment. Obviously, it's safe to say that lots of you are under unprecedented strain. There's been a significant and sustained increase in demand for the services provided by charities. So obviously, according to research from one of my previous employers, the Charities Aid Foundation, they did a survey last year, and 86% of surveyed charities reported an increase in demand for their services. Now, obviously, naturally, if you need to deliver more, that means you need to have more resources, more funding. And unfortunately, CAF UK's giving report shows that charities are now relying on donations from fewer donors. So obviously, adding different income streams to your arsenal is incredibly difficult. And what's obviously changing is how, when, and why people give. So obviously recent fundraising trend analysis highlights that donors are giving more strategically, often in fewer, more intentional giving moments rather than lots of small impulsive gifts like they have done in the past. And obviously on top of this, they're more demanding in terms of their experience with the organization. So obviously, we're also seeing lots of challenges around staff retention, which obviously are often driven by organization-wide cost-cutting exercises, roles not being backfilled in some instances. And obviously, this is the type of backdrop that the digital shift that we're experiencing in this what we're going to talk about today. And obviously, alongside these external pressures, we're seeing a common set of system challenges across the sector. So many organizations still rely on fragmented systems and data silos, separate tools for ERP, fundraising, service delivery, grant management, and unfortunately, in a lot of instances, those sort of systems don't talk to each other. If you go into particular, sector reports of all the big players, really what's coming to the fore is that fragmentation is one of the key reasons data quality and reporting suffer. So when systems aren't integrated, users and leaders, they lack a single version of truth, a single source of data effectively. And because of this, Teams fall back on manual spreadsheets, workarounds, and obviously all of this slows down everything from campaign reporting to compliance, analysis, and makes anything like embedding automation incredibly hard to implement. So when we talk about being digital ready, we're not just talking about having modern tools, but we're really talking about fixing these underlying issues. So fragmented systems, siloed data, and heavy manual processes. And those are the foundations we'd really need to address if you want the latest technology such as AI, machine learning, automation, better reporting and insights to actually work for us and not just add more complexity. And those are some of those key overarching challenges, and obviously naturally these are driven by in some instances events that are outside of our control, at a very global or macro level. But really, if we look at particular key digital trends that are shaping our sector in 2026, these are some of the ones that we at mhance are seeing day in day out effectively. So across all sector reports we've looked at and all those some conversations with clients of ours and prospects, these are some of the key digital themes that keep appearing in 2026. So obviously cybersecurity is now seen as part of your mission. So obviously protecting sensitive supporter and beneficiary data is a key component of trust. And naturally, Microsoft's security stack around and tools like Defender and Purview, which many of you will be using, they're really designed to help charities make security a strategic advantage, not just a compliance exercise. Because ultimately, if you're dealing with your supporter information, cybersecurity, and if you're not doing it right, you don't want to fall foul of cyber criminals effectively. I mean, I've been there, unfortunately, in the past myself and a previous employer. Digital and AI governance is also rising up on the board agenda. So many charities obviously acknowledge they don't yet have enough digital expertise at trustee level. So even as AI tools become more ingrained and embedded in day-to-day work at an individual level. And obviously data is increasingly described as a key strategic asset. So obviously reports note a widening gap between organizations that have a unified, well-governed data in place and those that don't. And especially as obviously Microsoft has tools such as Fabric and Power BI, which makes integration and surfacing of data, making it that democratization of data easier in terms of extracting insight when the data is ready. And obviously, digital engagement and mobile giving continue to accelerate at a fairly frantic pace. Obviously, with charities, whilst they prioritize online presence and digital fundraising far more than in previous years, many are still left behind the curve, especially compared to the commercial sector, which we'll look at very shortly. And then finally, AI and automation are moving from this sort of experimentation phase to mainstream use. Obviously, Microsoft's own nonprofit guidance highlights AI as one of the dominant forces charities need to plan for in 2026. And obviously, one of the reports that Charity Digital launched was obviously talked about UK charities needing to scanning the horizon effectively for digital tools that meet supporter expectations, because obviously those expectations are rising fast. The same report highlights that personalization is now essential, but obviously harder to achieve with fragmented digital audiences. And mobile giving and frictionless donation flows are becoming the norm, not the expectation, not the exception rather. So influenced by how supporters experience commercial apps like Amazon, ASOS, Deliveroo, Uber, and many more. And AI and automation are no longer fringe with rapid advances in AI nonprofit, especially around data privacy and multi-channel pressures. So if you look at and if we take a helicopter view and start homing in on some of those particular use cases, one of the key ones obviously is around digital first giving with shifting donor demographics effectively. So one of these key trends, obviously chiefly around digital engagement, is driven by changes in supporter expectations in a world that is shaped by instant gratification and always being available and always being online. And this isn't really a optional innovation in my opinion, but really keeping pace with how people choose to interact with the world. Second, personalization is becoming a core expectation. Fundraising everywhere's research points out that while personalization drives better fundraising outcomes, smaller fragmented digital audiences make it increasingly difficult to deliver relevance without better data and integrated systems. So supporters today expect communications tailored to who they are, what they care about, and the channels they prefer. And thirdly, expectations are changing because supporters live in an online culture of instant gratification. So supporters demand seamless digital interactions, so shaped by rapid advances in AI and the always online nature of digital life. And charity digital trends reinforce this. So digital habits shaped by mobile apps and frictionless online experiences mean that supporters expect charities to deliver that same always available, always responsive approach. So whether it's making a donation, asking a question to your supporter care team, you want to update your contact details, opt-in of communication, opt-out, or you're looking for particular support from your favorite charity, or your service user. So obviously the expectation is that it's seamless, it's immediate, intuitive, and personalized. And obviously in this world of digital engagement, it's really all about meeting supporters in the moment and not losing time. So on their devices, in their preferred channels, and with meaningful, timely interactions. And these behavioral shifts, they really set the stage for hyper-personalization and frictionless mobile giving. Which brings me on to the next point. And let's start looking at some of those particular use cases in a bit more detail. So obviously we can all agree really that, what every charity wants is to make supporter engagement with their charity as easy as possible and ensure those charities have an understanding of their marketable pool of supporters and really being able to nurture those supporters and give them the best optimal experiences. And if we look at digital fundraising trends, obviously the clear pattern that's emerged over the last couple of years is donors increasingly expect modern, frictionless online giving experiences that feel like the best of the commercial world, not clunky web forms from 10 years ago. And all the different fundraising platforms that we speak to, whether it's Fundraise Up, Just Giving, Enthuse, and many others, they talk explicitly about frictionless donation journeys, so fast loading forms, suggested ask amounts, digital wallets, Apple Pay, Google Pay, etc. And really having minimal steps from intent to completion. So you want to ensure that experience in terms of someone decides to want to make a donation, right down to making a donation and being able to receive those instant receipts, for example, that they can do it off their sofa, for example. They don't need to log onto their laptop. You want to make that experience as seamless as possible. And these solutions really are designed to remove donor friction and fixed donation drop-off, which is unfortunately a very common theme. So, for example, when we speak to some of our clients, this also feeds into, suggested ask amounts around understanding your donor segments, for example, your demographics, which supporters are most likely to have a higher donation, understanding where they live so you can do better segmentation, understanding supporter journeys. And really those supporter journeys, and many of you will have heard of supporter journeys, of course, obviously naturally they spread across multiple digital channels, and really it's about ensuring that very first experience a supporter has with your organization when they want to make a donation is as easy and intuitive as possible. So the sector commentary generally on digital fundraising emphasizes multi-channel campaigns, so email, social, SMS, website, peer-to-peer fundraising platforms, etc. So really it's essential to reach and resonate with audiences that, many of the younger generations, they don't even use email, primarily for when they do their giving. Standing orders, whilst it might be a thing, younger generations probably won't know what that means. So it's really about, rejuvenating your changing donor base and making sure that solutions you have are up to date across all age ranges. So really it's about hassle-free giving. And obviously, because those expectations, they're shaped outside of our sector. They order from Deliveroo or ASOS in really a couple of taps. And this instant basket experience is truly the benchmark of why they subconsciously apply when they land on your donation page or when they contact you with a question. So if your system can't deliver that ease and responsiveness, it's jarring and it adds an additional strain on your already strained, stretched team effectively. And those supporters expect digital-first experiences, so really from that very first touch point right down to, in terms of ensuring you have relevancy and hyper-personalization in place. And the important thing is that it isn't just a nicer front end. So obviously when we speak to our colleagues at Fundraise Up, for example, that's integrated into Dynamics 365 and mhance's very own nonprofit core for nonprofits. So every donation becomes part of a single supporter record. And that enables the personalization and reporting we talked about earlier, and it creates the clean data you really need for AI and automation later on. And the second point I want to make is around agentic AI. Obviously, this sort of digital-first approach is really amplified by AI. So whilst generative and predictive AI has been around for a good few years, agentic AI is an area where a lot of the large tech companies are investing heavily in, and it's obviously here to stay, unlike things like NFTs, for example. And Microsoft has a very good solution in that instance, which we're using on a day-to-day basis, which is Microsoft Copilot Studio. Many of you will obviously use, sometimes organization-wide or individually use tools like ChatGPT, Claude, or Copilot in that instance. And Copilot Studio is Microsoft's low-code platform to build, customize, and deploy AI assistants. So really, you can extend your Microsoft Copilot license with your own prompts, workflows, plugins, and data sources, which is, because it's part of the Microsoft stack, it's natively integrated with Dynamics 365, Power Platform, and Microsoft 365 and external systems. But really, it only really shines when obviously you have the foundations in place around integrated systems, governed data, and clear processes. So otherwise, you just risk automating chaos and confusion. And Copilot Studio isn't just, we're not talking about chatbots, but really about agentic AI. So AI that you can train and configure, that can learn. And these AI agents can work autonomously and make decisions, execute tasks based on your organizational goals. And again, if I kind of pull back into that Charity Digital report, they talk about how agentic AI can enrich staff experiences, so support fundraising activity, engage supporters, and even help teams across service delivery, finance, and IT. And one of the strongest use cases that we've seen here at mhance is around supporter care. So with Copilot Studio, nonprofits can deploy, supporter-facing agents that are available 24/7. So, for example, overnight or over periods where you might be, understaffed, like over Christmas or New Year, for example. So those supporter-facing agents are there to answer questions, provide donation information, support volunteers without needing, overnight staffing, for example. So they can also automate autonomously, start triaging service users, help frontline teams manage caseloads, and guide beneficiaries to the right support. And obviously, unlike traditional chatbots, agentic AI can actually take action. So it can navigate workflows automatically, make decisions, and optimize tasks without human intervention. So in practical terms, that means updating the CRM, for example, with records, sending follow-up emails, checking a volunteer's availability, for example, or even escalating complex queries to the next available agent effectively as the first line of support. And all of that can happen automatically within your Microsoft ecosystem. And obviously, it can power, internal facing agents as well. So, for example, HR agents or lead qualification bots or knowledge assistants, effectively allowing staff to focus on high value relationships while the AI does the heavy lifting effectively in terms of routine tasks. And obviously, all of this matters because the sector is stretched, as I mentioned earlier. So agentic AI can help charities extend capacity, improve response times, and deliver a more consistent supporter experience, all without growing headcount. And again, when we talk about being digital ready for AI, this is what we really mean. It's about having the systems and data in place. So when you start embracing agentic AI, you can do so safely and take on real work for you and free your teams up to focus on relationships and ultimately have a better impact. Now, obviously, that's all well and good, but what are some of those practical steps in terms of embracing this sort of new world of digital readiness? There's a few things, and you might have your own ideas that as a follow-up from this webinar, but here's some of the I think the key practical steps that I see nonprofits can take to modernize the systems in a way that is obviously realistic and future-proof as well, importantly. So naturally, firstly, review your data foundations. Data is king in this sort of scenario across the organization. As I mentioned earlier, data is your true currency as a differentiator. So data cleanliness and access to data and governance are the biggest obstacles to AI adoption. If your data is inconsistent, siloed, or incomplete, AI will simply amplify that chaos. And this is the core building block of being digital ready. It's also important to integrate your core systems. So, again, Charity Digital's guidance on the AI Foundation stressed that, before embracing AI, charities must ensure their systems and data are connected. So an example, your fundraising system, your finance and ERP system, your service delivery and grant making solutions, they need to work together. Ideally to focus on a single source of truth, a single source of data, if you will. And this directly addresses, some of the sector's most common system challenges. It's also important to embed governance and compliance early on. So before turning on Copilot or any automated tool, you really need the digital data and AI governance in place, permissions, policies, risk oversight and accountability. So obviously, because it's not just a tech team task, it's really about organizational strategy. And also modernizing phases. So obviously building your business case, a best practice approach, so you can see that value straight on, focus on smaller cohorts rather than the whole organization, the very first instance, effectively. So really about prioritizing what are your biggest pain points, stabilizing some of your core platforms, and start layering capabilities over time. So it doesn't feel it's disruptive or expensive, but just sequenced effectively. And start building AI literacy across your organization. So it's not just plug and play AI. It's really about staff capability, and which ultimately is one of the biggest success factors in any sort of technology adoption piece. So if you invest in AI or any technology, start looking at investing in change management, training, and confidence building across roles. So you get user buy-in and agency, and that goes all the way up to your trustees. And start piloting safe and contained AI use cases. So start small, obviously supportive FAQs, volunteer queries, internal HR support, or automating content workflows. So, a lot of the nonprofit examples that we see show really, how quickly and low risk use cases can provide value fast. And obviously these steps hopefully help you create foundations that AI, automation, and insight rely on. Obviously, without these foundations, digital transformation becomes harder, slower, and riskier. And obviously, with them, hopefully, you're ready for whatever 2026 can throw at us. So, what are the final key takeaways? Obviously, digital engagement, like we explored today, is rising faster than ever. Obviously, UK charities are placing, greater emphasis on online presence, digital fundraising than obviously ever than in previous years. Obviously, that signals how central digital channels have become to how we operate as a nonprofit. But obviously, this rise in digital engagement has created, a supporter engagement gap. So obviously, many charities simply aren't, keeping up with what supporters now expect. Sometimes due to systems, sometimes due to processes, or combination. But really, supporters expect immediacy, personalization, and seamless digital experiences. And also, donor behavior is also evolving every year, and it's hard to keep up in some instances. But preferences are constantly shifting, meaning our strategies must evolve continuously too. And one of the most significant behavior shifts is around the rise of mobile giving. Mobile channels are transforming donor engagement, and obviously donors expect you to give quickly, easily, and without friction. And in parallel to that, obviously, multi-channel engagement has become essential. So obviously, benchmark shows that donors interact across social media, mobile, email, web, and obviously charities must present in all those places to stay relevant. As a final point, obviously, AI is accelerating across the sector. It's here to stay. It's reshaping expectations for responsiveness and creating opportunities for automation, smart engagement, and 24/7 supporter care. And what do we do with all this? Obviously, ideally, we strengthen our digital readiness. Obviously, we close those engagement gaps. We design mobile-first donation experiences. We invest in multi-channel communication strategies and keep our fundraising strategies adaptive, and begin piloting AI when it can deliver real value, when it's a real business case in terms of what it can deliver. And obviously, these steps give us a practical and achievable path to meeting support expectations in 2026 and beyond. So that's me done primarily. Obviously, as a final point, I would like to draw your attention. Obviously, we're doing lots of events at mhance. Please go to our website if you're interested in, agentic AI. Obviously, we've got a webinar in a couple of weeks' time on that. If you're interested in data platforms and integration platforms, we're looking at that in a couple of weeks' time as well. and we'll be at all the major industry events, Microsoft Elevate, etc. Some of the Microsoft particular ones. But yeah, without further ado, that's me done for the day. So thank you so much for attending, everyone. If there are any questions, that's my email address. Find me on LinkedIn, or email us at sayhello@mhance.com, and I'll stop sharing. And hopefully you've all enjoyed the day today, and we'll hope to see you soon.